the opportunity to share our work via this recording. We do know that we live in a world where understanding food production is more important than ever. Yet, in many regions, we still lack reliable and timely data on what is actually growing in the fields. Agricultural surveys and census data provide valuable information, but they are often costly, infrequent, and limited when it comes to the spatial and temporal details. This is what we call a data gap. And today, I will show how Earth observation, especially satellite images, and machine learning can help us to close this gap by providing consistent, scalable, and detailed insights into agricultural systems. Around the world, governments and space agencies are investing heavily in new Earth observation missions. For example, the European Space Agency, NASA, and many others are launching satellites with unprecedented capabilities. Higher spectral, spatial, temporal resolutions means we can see more details more frequently and with more biochemical information than ever before. This creates opportunities to monitor agriculture, not just for yields, but also for the nutrient quality. The reason why we can use satellite images for different agricultural applications is because of three important technological developments. The first important development is related to spatial resolution, what you see in this image before here. Higher spatial resolution allows us to distinguish fine details on the ground, such as individual smallholder fields. As you see in this image, they are delineated. We can identify crop rows and even within field variability. We have also an important development when it comes to the so-called spectral resolution. Higher spectral resolution captures detailed information about how plants reflect light across wavelengths, revealing their biochemical properties. For example, with our smartphones, we can take pictures in the RGB, red, green, and blue. With this kind of images that have high spectral resolution, we call them hyperspectral resolutions, we have more than 200 spectral bands, and these spectral bands allow us to monitor or to identify the biochemical properties of vegetation. And we have another very important spatial development. This is related to the temporal resolution. It means more frequent observations, and this enables us to monitor crops over time. Think of tracking crop growth stages, identifying the planting dates, measuring the impact of drought or pests through the season. These are the developments, the key developments when it comes to satellite observation that allow us to increase their utilization for different agricultural applications. I think it doesn't come as a surprise that in parallel we have amazing developments when it comes to machine learning. We saw initially a transition from what we called traditional machine learning, where we as users of these algorithms, we had to do what is called the feature engineering. In other words, we had to identify from the raw images the features that are very important for a specific prediction task. This can be predicting the agricultural yield or estimating the nutritional quality of crops. And in the last more than 10 years, we have the so-called deep learning algorithms that are so intelligent that they can identify by themselves the information that we need, so the relevant features from the raw satellite images themselves. Besides this transition from traditional machine learning to deep learning, we also have a transition from the so-called model-centric AI to data-centric AI. In the model-centric AI, we focused a lot on hyper parameters, tuning them, finding the proper parameters, or maybe implementing a more complex model. Whereas in the data-centric AI approach, we don't focus so much on the models, but we try to improve the quality of the data that are used by these algorithms for various predictions. And this is very important because not only that the quality of the predictions increases, but also the trust in this algorithm also increases. Thanks to these key developments when it comes to satellite images, resolutions, and machine learning, we can use this information for food production. In particular, we can use these technologies to answer questions such as what is on the field and what is the harvested area, and we can do this in the growing seasons or at the end of the growing seasons. We can answer questions such as how healthy are the crops, what are the various stressors, and also we use it for assessing the quantity and the quality of crop yields, and again we can do this at the end of the growing season and also within the growing season. And in the next slides, I would like to focus especially on this particular aspect, on using satellite observations and machine learning for assessing the quality of crop yields. Why are we interested in assessing the nutritional quality of crops? We do this because of a global form of malnutrition, which is called micronutrient deficiencies. This is a form of malnutrition that is caused by the insufficient uptake of essential nutrients for human health, such as calcium, iron, magnesium, and so on. This is also called hidden hunger because it is a form of malnutrition that we cannot see, but which affects our health or the health of human beings around the world. How is usually done when it comes to assessing the nutritional quality of crops? We do this through wet chemistry in the lab or through more advanced methods such as hyperspectral imaging in the lab. These methods are very effective, but unfortunately they are time-consuming, they are very expensive, and they are only possible after harvest. What does it mean? It means that even if we identify that the crops are lacking specific nutrients, it is too late for farmers to intervene. Now, it also, because they are so expensive, we cannot use them to scale across large areas and to provide timely information. In other words, we need faster, more scalable, non-destructive methods, and this is where our work comes into place. In our work, we use satellite imageries and other spatially explicit covariates that explain the environmental conditions and management practices together with different machine learning models to assess the nutritional quality of crops. And in the presentation today, I would like to share with you two approaches, how we do this crop quality assessment at the farm level, and also how we implemented the same approach in order to assess the nutritional quality of crops in Ethiopia. So for the first scenario or approach, I would like to discuss with you now the question, can we use very high resolution, hyperspectral resolution images to estimate nutrients in soil, nutrients in croplands, and in the crop grains? If you recall, I was talking about one important development when it comes to satellite images, namely the spectral resolution, the fact that we have images called hyperspectral images with more than 200 wavelengths that allow us to monitor biochemical composition of vegetation. And this is what we explored in this farm, which is situated in Italy. So we like to travel to Italy, not only for field work, but also for the good food. So what we've done here, we collected a lot of measurements on the ground. So we collected grains, for example, on the ground, and we sent them to the lab in order to measure their nutritional quality. Why is this important? It's because here, as we see in the approach that we implement, we need these samples in order to train our algorithms so that they are able to predict the nutritional quality of the crop, of the target crops. And as it is illustrated here, we use hyperspectral satellite images to do that. In this image, or this slide, I would like to show you that we use this approach to estimate not only the nutritional quality in grains, but also the nutritional quality or the nutrient composition of the crops during the growing seasons, and also the nutrients that are present in the soil, using the same hyperspectral satellite images and crop samples that are collected in the field. And when it comes to the soil part, we have the soil samples. And here are a few results that we obtained. What we see on the first part of this slide are different methods that we implemented, and the accuracies of these methods, which is quite high for especially for calcium, for iron, magnesium, for nitrogen, sulfur, phosphorus, and so on. And as I mentioned before, we use the satellite images in order to generate spatially explicit information of these nutrients. In this particular case, the nutrients in the soil, because we wanted to understand how the nutrients that are available in the soil will affect the nutrient content in the plants and later in the grains. And then trying to understand the nutrient uptake from the soil to the plant and further to the grains. So these are the maps that we generate when it comes to the soil properties, but we generate similar maps, so maps that show the spatial variation of the nutrients in the crops. And here we have an example of canopy nitrogen content, because I mentioned that we do this assessment in the crop plants themselves, not only in the grains. And what we see here, we did the analysis across 3 main growing seasons in 2022, 2023, and 2024. And we did this across several stages of crop growth stages during one growing season. We have in April, in May, June, July, for example, for 2022. In 2023, you see something interesting, namely in June, we have a gap. This happens because we are using satellite images. These are optical images, and I don't know whether you believe it or not, but it also is raining in Italy as well. So unfortunately, this image in particular was covered by clouds, so we don't have information on the canopy nitrogen content in June for 2023. This is one of the challenges that we need to address. And we do similar maps when it comes to the spatial variations of the nutrients in the grains. So at the farm level, for each of the field that we know that is cultivated either with maize or rice or wheat, these are our target crops, we see the spatial variations of, in this particular case, calcium, and we have similar maps for a lot of elements, including, for example, zinc. So this was an example of how we use satellite images to do the assessment of the monitoring of the nutrients in the soil, in the plants, and also in the grains. We did a similar study, not at the farm level, but at the regional scale, I would say, in Ethiopia, namely in Tigray, Amhara, and Oromia. In this case, we had access to more than 2,000 crop nutrient samples that were provided by the Geonutrition Project. These samples have been collected in the 2017-2018 growing season for teff, wheat, maize, sorghum, and barley. And what you see here are the nutrients that were measured in the lab, and then we use basically the same methodology that I presented before to estimate and to predict those target nutrients. There is a bit of a difference between this approach and the one that I presented before. So in the one that I presented before, we used only satellite images, so hyperspectral images. In this case, we used also other spatially explicit covariates that explain different environmental conditions. Think of soil properties, think of elevation, think of precipitation and temperature, and so on. I implemented that method. We generated these, again, the maps that show the spatial variation of nutrients across Tigray, Oromia, Amhara. In order for us to generate these maps, we also had to have access to high resolution or highly accurate crop maps for the target crops that we were focusing on. Here, in this particular example, you see the maps that we generated for wheat grains. And what we observe is that using the satellite images and spatially explicit covariates gives us good results. However, we also have a lot of challenges. These challenges are caused by the fact that the nutrient concentration in the crops varies spatially and temporally because of three main factors, and these are genetics, management, and the environment. And unfortunately, we do not have sufficient in situ data to capture these variations. Collecting in situ data is a key prerequisite in order to generate reliable predictions by using satellite images. And another bottleneck of our approach is that we do not have access to up-to-date information on the crop type maps. Without these maps, we cannot generate spatially explicit information. So in other words, what do we need and what we keep on working on? We need many things, but I just put two things here. We need high quality representative in situ data that are capable to capture the management, the genetics and the environment. And also we need multidisciplinary team. Assessing the nutritional quality of crops is a very complex topic that requires teams with soil scientists, plant biologists, agronomists, with farmers, with different stakeholders who can work with us, with the remote sensing specialists to generate spatially explicit information of crop nutrients across different areas and across different temporal scales. Thank you so much for having me here today, and you can contact me if you have questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mariana. I think, like I mentioned, let's wind up the presentations and we'll collect all the questions in the discussion session. So it's a very clear, comprehensive presentation and very easy to capture what she's trying to make. And of course, the other team members, Dr. Bini is also here. The PhD candidates are also here in this presentation. So later on, they can add also some additional points to enrich her presentation. Now, let me call upon Professor Kaleab. Oh. Okay. New, okay. Sorry for the disorganization. We have additional one presentation by, what's her name? Okay, Mintesinot, okay. Mintesinot, now you are getting the big picture and you disturbed the schedule. We expect a very best presentation from you. No stress, okay?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Mintesinot, and today I will present mapping diffusion of improved fodder using edge observation and machine learning, a case study in Awash sub-basin using remote sensing. Okay. Just for some context, as we know, Afar is a semi-arid regions, from arid to semi-arid regions, and where livestock production is the primary livelihood in those areas. However, but in these areas, those redundant drought and erratic rainfall causes degradation in ecological zones of these rangelands or grasslands in that areas. However, within this problem, there is an opportunity with Awash River. Then the irrigations of these Awash rivers plays a crucial role in cultivating improved fodder or forage for feeding their grasslands. Then the main gap here is in order to quantify the spatial distribution, including the temporal diffusion of this fodder, we need to quantify the extent of fodder in the study area. For this case, we need to use Earth observation or satellite imagery and the machine learning algorithm to detect the diffusion and also the adoptions of this fodder extent in order to monitor and assess the impact of this fodder distribution in the areas. Yeah, as a motivation, our motivation stems from a field observation, as you see in this diagram. The area affected by recurrent drought, as you see in the timeline of major drought episodes were detected based on some historical data. For example, the El Nino in 2015, 2016, and a drought in 2020 causes rangeland degradation in this basin. This will cause the decline of herd size per households. For this one, household on these areas comes to very difficult choices or decisions. One, to reduce the size of the herds or to find some alternative feeds for their livestock. For this purpose, we are going to study what is the extent and what is the diffusion or adoption of this improved fodder for these areas. Okay, next. Then, as I explained, in order to solve this problem, the objective is to map and analyze the spatial diffusion of irrigation-based improved forage system in some basins using remote sensing and machine learning algorithms. This one is a study area, which is the study spans in this Amhara regional states and Afar. The area is approximately around 65,000 square kilometers. As you see, the areas is represented by a normalized different vegetation index, which shows the vegetation greenness values, and most of the lowland areas are semi-arid regions, less NEDVI, which the green one represents the higher vegetation greenness values, and the yellow one is the low vegetation or non-vegetation areas. Yeah. And for mapping the diffusion of fodder in those areas, we are using a multi-source data from different types of sources. For example, we use different types of Earth observation satellites like Sentinel-2, which is a multispectral satellite imagery, and the Landsat 8 and 9. It is also a multispectral imagery which provide a temporal and a high spatial resolution imagery for those areas. In addition to this one, we also combine a Sentinel-1, which is a synthetic aperture radar, a microwave imagery to capturing different types of covarieties for detecting these fodder cultivations. Also, we integrated different types of covarieties like climate and hydrological data from different types of sources like MODIS, and also we include environmental data like digital elevation models, slope, which is derived from these elevation data to estimate and map the extent of diffusion of fodder in the areas. The other one, as I explained in the first slide, there is a recurrent drought in the study area which causes the degradation of rangeland ecosystems. For this one, we are going to use this BFAST algorithm, which detects the abrupt changes of normalized different vegetation index to see if there is a drought or if there is some breakers related with NEDVI, based on NEDVI algorithms. And after that, we model the pipeline for mapping the time the fodder using a time series remote sensing data and a machine learning algorithm. As you see, there is a data source. But the key motivation here is in Afar, improved fodder cultivation primarily occurs near to this irrigation based agriculture. It is limited based on this agriculture. Therefore, the adoption and also the diffusions of these improved fodders are constrained by access to irrigation infrastructure. Then the diffusion is limited by this irrigation infrastructure due to availability of water and other irrigation-based infrastructures. For this reason, our first step is to map the irrigation-based agriculture areas in these basins. For this one, we use different types of air observation and other co-varieties to differentiate rain-feed-based agricultural system from irrigation-based agricultural areas. Then, next slide. Yeah. When you come to the first result, which is BFAST, which detects the arbor change of this normalized different vegetation indicators, we identify a multiple vegetation arbor changes. For example, as in 2015, there is a breakpoint which shows improved condition of vegetation condition in the area, which is maybe due to climate favorable condition or high rainfall amounts. However, in 2018, 2020, and 22, I think in the lower image you can see NDVI time series. This NDVI analysis shows this arbor change, or it shows some vegetation stresses which causes degradation of the rangeland or fodder map in the study areas. Then after this, the first one is like detecting the irrigation map. For this one, we use a high-resolution satellite imagery for collecting ground control data pointers. And from high-resolution PlanetScope imagery, we collect around 3,000 ground control data to classify the land use land cover into 7 major land uses, like irrigation agriculture, rain feed, forest, water, and other land use land cover classes. Then, based on this one, we classify into different land use land cover class. As you see, this is the land use land cover in the Afar regions, and we obtain around accuracy of 94.6% in classifications. And for specific irrigation-based classes, the precision is around 0.94, which is perfectly classified from other land use land cover maps. This is the first step. Then we extract, mask the irrigation-based agriculture from this land use land cover map and do different types of analysis for detecting the fodder distribution in the areas. This is the confusion matrix, which shows the accuracy of classification accuracies. Next, yeah. This is the extracted or masked irrigation-based agriculture in the area. We identify 3 major irrigation-based clusters in the basin. The one in the upper shows the major areas which cultivate the fodder and other cereal crops based on the awash rivers, and also we see in the middle other irrigation areas which mainly cultivated cereals, wheat, and maize, and the one in the bottom represents the awash or Fantale area, which is cultivated mainly also the cereal crops. For this one, we develop a pipeline using Earth observation and the machine learning to detect the fodder and identify or separate fodder crops from other cereal crops. For mapping of this fodder, we are using different types of remote sensing co-varieties, like we extract normalized different vegetation indexes. We use different types of indices from Sentinel-1 using vertical and horizontal polarization to detect the specific soil moisture and the different types of texture analysis. And also from Landsat, we use the thermal band to detect the land surface temperature to see these irrigation-based fodder cultivations. Then this is different types of indices which are used in estimating or producing fodder map from satellite imagery. We do different types of future importance based on a random forest algorithm. Then based on this one, normalize different water index, land surface water index, and a dry dry season normalized vegetarian index plays a crucial or the major role in identifying fodder from other non-fodder cereal crops. And we use different types of also vegetation phenology to identify fodder from other similar crop types like wheat and maize. By combining all those co-varieties, we try to map or we just identify fodder from those areas. Then this is like a final classification prototype. We use a crowd-based data collection for training our machine model algorithms, and we use ground data, different types of ground data from the field, and we use different types of remote sensing cow varieties. By using those data, we extracted a fodder which represented in the green, and also the red one is, we use a binary classification, like green one is a fodder and the other one is an non-fodder, with overall accuracy of 71, and currently we are working to improve the accuracy of the detection of the fodder, and also we are planning to make a prediction in the larger areas of the basin in the future. Yeah, this is the last one is conclusion. Then the study which demonstrates that irrigation infrastructure strongly controls the spatial diffusion of improved forage or fodder system in the basins, and the use of multi-sensor satellite imagery from different instruments and from different time will help us to identify fodder from other land uses, and also normalize different water index, and crop phenology also plays a significant role in identifying improved fodder. The accuracy is also good, and we are working on to improve this one, and this is all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Mintesinot. He offered us the practical perspective of the tools that Mariana introduced to us. The practical perspective was well addressed by Mintesinot, taking Afar region and using those tools to identify different fodder matrices. So thank you for that. It was a very nice presentation. Thank you. So our next presenter is Professor Kaleab, the man that I would like to introduce with all the superlative words that I can use. Okay, the most humble, the best known researcher, and I can say the closest Homo sapien that I know. So without, yeah, he has contributed a lot to our center, to our college, to our university. Definitely there will be a stage to formally acknowledge him like that, but sorry for being emotional, and without further ado, I would like to leave the floor to Professor Kaleab. Yeah. 20 minutes.
Now you have set that expectation. That's very, I'm going to land from the sky. So we had a series of presentations, starting from how decision on adoption of innovations are made, and that different policies in different locations, so it is a lot that needs to be considered, not just the technologies, as well as the requirements of those technologies for them to be successful in a given location, as Tongi highlighted it, with the Afla Safe, which is also a CG innovation, by the way. We had an inventory of the innovations coming from the CG, from multiple countries. What do we have in our drawers, out in the field? So, and what are they focusing on? Followed by innovations on their own, they're not going to move on their own. You need actors, policies, and all that interaction is critical to make sure that those innovations meet their end purpose. Okay? And then we took a flight to the sky to see on how objectively can we measure from the sky nutrients, not only yield, crop yield, but also nutrients, crop type, and the like. And then we zoomed into Afar, where the first Homo sapien was identified. Lucy, welcome. We are all brothers and sisters in this land. And so we zoomed into Afar to see more closely the story of forage, improved fodder, and its diffusion, with the support of satellite imagery to see the level of diffusion that has happened across time. My job is to take you from that sky. There would be an intermediate position later on in the future where Dr. Binyam and his team would be flying a drone to get us in between the sky, above the clouds and below the clouds. But my job now is to land you to Afar. So what did we do? We did a qualitative assessment, 12 focus group discussions, key informant interviews in 2 waradas, 2 districts, in 4 qabalés that represent a gradient of adoption of improved forage. So the key informant interviews were done with health extension workers on the one hand, but also members of women group, cooperatives, agricultural experts, the DAs, the development agents, and the like. Focus group discussions, again, among cooperatives, but also among caregivers of young children. And then what do we, so the whole aim is, okay, you know, the remote sensing team is able to assess the diffusion using satellite imagery, but as we go on the ground and ask people on, you know, do you know anything about forage? What type of forage, etc. So we identified here, I'm going to give you only highlights. Yes, we see that the story of improved forage, the expansion of improved forage, as we see it from surveys quantitatively, but as well as from satellite imagery, was confirmed on the ground. They told us that this is a true trend. We see an expansion of improved fodder. But what led to that? And here's an illustrative quote from a livestock development expert in the Afar region that tells us this fodder work started because of the 2007 El Nino drought in the region, when a large number of animals died and the community was severely affected. From that experience, the Regional Agricultural Bureau, with support from the African Development Bank, initiated this fodder production project on 700 hectares of land to respond to drought, and drought mitigation work was carried out. And I see there's enough pieces for everyone here, for political scientists to understand which actor, when, etc. Well, the El Nino. So we can see from the greenness, the NDVI that the remote sensing people use, that definitely, yes, we had that 2015 where you see a dip there, and yes. And if you look at some of the news and some of the websites from the development, from those in development work, then you will see Ethiopian government, humanitarian partners scale up to meet additional immediate relief needs of El Nino. This is from the UNICEF website from 2016. And yes, definitely there was something that we couldn't miss. There was something really major, devastating, that has happened in 2015 that triggered an action. So that's the external condition, okay, that drought that has happened. Then we look at, okay, probably, and I guess what they did, okay, we have this condition that is severe, we don't want to repeat it again, see it again, it's frequent, it happens, but this time it was really bad, we don't want to see it again. Okay, then I'm guessing that the thought at the time would be, what do we have, is the question. So in Afar region, you have irrigation infrastructures. You have the Awash River Basin that Mintesinot has presented. Not everywhere in Afar is green, but those green spots that you would see on the northeast and then some in the southern part, you would see, those are irrigated areas where you have irrigation potential. And then at the bottom, you have canals that were built for a different reason, for expansion of sugarcane production at the time, okay, primarily. So, okay, we have these infrastructures on the ground, and it refers back to what Tongi has said, the requirements. What do we have on the ground to allow innovations to happen? Then, the kind of thing that we did, what are the innovations that are available that could be now deployed to address the problem? So we have animal feeds from different types, improved grass fodders like panicum, Rhodes grass, Sudan grass, and then some legume fodders as well. All these are animal feeds, and those that are colored in green and yellow are the ones that were pushed by the CG Center and are said to be improved fodders. So normally, so what you see, this is some pictures from Afar, the same Afar, the top and the one on the bottom, depending on where you're located in Afar and how close you are to the water source. So we have external factors pushing us to take action. Internal assessment tells us that we have some capacity of irrigation and the canals available, but then you need actors to turn those elements into something on the ground. So the ecosystem of actors and their evolving contributions that needs to be studied on its own. And here I'm just giving you a cross-section of which are the actors that we've identified during our interviews, and I encourage those that work on this to really dig deeper and see the various dynamics that happen on the ground. We have government bodies and public sector agencies, and it's identified as the primary driver of fodder promotion is the government, operating through various levels of administration to provide policy direction, land, and technical expertise. You have the Regional Agricultural Bureau that is composed of different arms, the Afar Bureau of Livestock, the Warada offices, so that's the district office, the extension workers that play a key role. You have research institutes in Afar, like the Afar Pastoral and Agro-Pastoral Research Institute, that tested some of these fodders to see if they're heat tolerant, drought tolerant, and are adapted to the local context. You have an array of implementing NGOs working in this area, like Save the Children, providing seeds, tools, and training to establish cooperatives. Care Ethiopia, World Vision, Plan International, focusing on nutrition linkages, and then UNICEF supporting women's participation. And so this is at the time of our qualitative assessment. And then, of course, you have the international donors and banks behind major projects. Some of the major projects are financed by international bodies like African Development Bank, the World Bank, and the like. So you have an array of actors playing different roles, different goals as well, some nutrition, some resilience, some women, gender empowerment. So many things are happening on the ground. But the story is about forage. So we've seen from the satellite imagery that there has been some adoption and diffusion along the areas where it was possible. So now we kind of say, okay, what is the impact in the views of the people that live in Afar? And try to identify some of the things that emerge. One is a livelihood change, a transition from a pastoral to agro-pastoral, and sometimes to even a stationary livelihood, because now they have improved fodder. They don't need to go and search for fodder for grazing land and the like, and instead they have the fodder in their backyard or nearby. So that's a total change of the way people live. They have lived as pastorals moving around for centuries. Okay? So settling has altered the daily labor patterns for women, providing both economic and social benefits like less travel, more income from side activities, some form of empowerment because of the trainings that came in as part of the ecosystem of actors. But then it's not always rosy, right? There's some very good things happening, but despite the benefits, the new livelihood model faces significant fragility. And that fragility comes from the infrastructure dependency, where mechanical failures, fuel shortage for the pump, for the irrigation, or canal damage can halt production frequently, causing some households to revert back to the old ways of living. So a disadoption is also seen when when all the requirements do not work anymore, when they're not there anymore. And then there's an issue also on fodder seed distribution, which is limited geographically, and to certain type of producers that often come in a format of cooperatives. They're favored to do this kind of fodder production over like individual farms. And depending on where you're located, you don't have all the requirements to be able to produce fodder everywhere. So there's something going on, and that's from the perspective of the farmers, not my perspective. Huh? Some impact that we see that were mentioned from productivity and income perspective, we see a number of things: new income generation streams, formation of cooperatives, increased productivity and animal products, as highlighted by some of the animal experts. And we're trying to illustrate by the oxen that you see on the bottom. Fodder as cash crop, it's not just for your own animal feed, but also to sell it elsewhere. Improved livestock health and conditions, as illustrated by some of these quotations. Some say, okay, by feeding our cooperative cows and chickens with improved fodder, we could produce more milk, eggs, etc. So this is coming from a cooperative that is in charge in producing animal feed. The fodder has multiple purposes. It serves as feed for their livestock, and they can sell the seeds. This is coming from a natural resource management professional in the Warada as Asaita. And then since the animals no longer move long distances, their body condition is better, as testified by an animal health expert. Another dynamics, things that are changing, is the gender dynamics is changing as well. As I said, there are certain actors working on giving training to women, on how to handle cash, forming cooperatives, and the like. And much of the fodder production and the value chain of fodder production, women are heavily involved. And so we see women's involvement in economic activities and agricultural production. They participate in fodder production, in the preparation of farmland, as well as in clearing the invasive species so that it could be replaced by improved fodder. A second illustrative quote, our group, so it's a women group that we've interviewed, say we do many activities. We produce improved fodder for our cows, feed the cows, milk them, sell the milk. We also breed chickens and sell eggs. Although it has been a short time, we are already able to generate income. But there's also something to look at more closely. Women spend less time traveling. That's identified as a positive thing. Less traveling long distances to scavenge for natural grass, but the intensity of daily labor has increased because now they're involved into many activities. So someone that looks at time spent, daily chores and nutrition and caregiving, that would be an interesting thing to dig deeper on the potential impact in terms of feeding children and the like. In terms of food security and nutrition, some of the things that emerge, there has been an increased dietary diversity, and then this didn't just come because of the forage, but because of the many actors that developed what they call nutrition-sensitive interventions that were made possible because of the forage adoption and diffusion in a way. And so there's a promotion of dietary diversity, so they say they're diversifying, okay, but that's, again, how much, we will see. Homegrown produce and consumption is another thing. So it's more of a sedentary life now. They're growing in their backyards, etc. So the total livelihood change that then come with this possibility of having your own backyard garden and the like, which could contribute to nutrition. And then from a health extension worker that says, okay, improved child nutrition is what we see, and from her perspective, it's seen as, okay, we see less and less of severe forms of acute malnutrition, okay? So the good thing is now you can link whatever we find on the ground to our data, the data that we have. And if, for those of you who were here on Tuesday, we presented the atlas. So one way to utilize the atlas is the following. So we have the remote sensing, the mapping from the remote sensing team that shows us where the irrigation potential is. Okay, all the green, yellowish, and the like. And so then we see the minimum dietary diversity that caregivers and health extension workers claimed that there is an improvement. And then what we see is, okay, this is 2011. If you see that circle, that's the area that is a bit lightened up. Otherwise, the rest is pretty red. So a lot of children are not meeting their minimum dietary diversity. You move to 2016, okay, that circle expanded, but it's still localized. And then moving to 2019, we start to see, okay, that same circle has expanded, but then we see some lightening up in the middle, potentially suggesting not as good as what we see on the bottom, but overall we see limited but positive change in terms of dietary diversity. Well, how about stunting? Okay, stunting, sometimes we take it as a synonymous to nutrition, well-being. It's way more than that. It just means the child is able to grow as much as he or she can. The environment, overall environment is conducive or not. Wash, nutrition, and many more things, okay? So 2011, this is what we see, the areas where we have irrigation, and then you see those circles. It's much better than in the other areas, the rangeland areas, but then we see an overall improvement where those same circles grow, but also some new areas lightening up. So there seems to be some change, both in dietary diversity, albeit minimal, but also on overall child growth, child stunting being reduced with time. Is it linked directly to forage? We don't know, we're just correlating here, but it overlaps with the areas where we have irrigation and where forage has been adopted. So is it directly linked to the forage or to the whole ecosystem where you have now more actors on top of forage playing their role? So key takeaways. We see a transition to agro-pastoralism in these areas, driven by necessity, those external shocks, and then the forage story giving an opportunity, but it's changing livelihood. Improved fodder is a catalyst for sedentarization, improved livestock health, but a reduction in the number of livestock as well. And women's economic engagement. Fodder adoption is associated with improved food and nutrition security, depending on how you measure it. In this case, based on the dietary diversity story that we have, and then also the stunting reduction. Adoption, diffusion, and its full potential impact is, however, capped by infrastructure availability. You have a canal, if you map it, then you would know that to go beyond that, you need something else, because it follows the water, and water availability is the key requirement for that forage to be adopted and diffused. Overall, this is, if we want to put it illustrated, this is what we see. For any given innovation, in this case, improved forage, there are external conditions that trigger, and that reminds us that, okay, we need to do something, that trigger the action. We then need also the internal conditions there to allow us to adopt or diffuse those innovations. So here in this case, it's the irrigation infrastructure and the limited grazing land because of the prosopis and invasive species that keep on expanding. But then you also need innovations, so that the stock take that Jeremy showed us, okay, what do we have in our drawers? What is there? How can we use it? So you need those innovations. And when you have those three and the right ecosystem and the a number of actors involved, then you promote certain innovations that could lead to diffusion and adoption and potentially impact on many fronts. So here we show, and we illustrate an example of a forage, not a nutritional intervention, not a direct woman intervention, women empowerment intervention or gender project, not a direct livelihood or whatever, but then you see that the impact could be multi-pronged, depending on how the innovations are being adopted and diffused. So this is the story we have and the number of actors involved. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Kaleab. It's a thought-provoking presentation, very deep insight to see the extent of the scope of IPORA project. So thank you once again. So now, as we approach the conclusion of the session, this session 2, we need to add the coordinates, all the presentations, what can we extract from them, what can we add. So to add the coordinates of these presentations and to see the connections of all the presentations and the outcomes and to take home take message, I would like to call Dr. Alemayehu from IFPRI to do his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I wouldn't call this a presentation. I just would like to, on the request of Kaleab, he literally twisted my arm to do this, so he owed me one. I would like to have two reflections, bringing the conversation to perhaps a more abstract level, as well as more ground level at the same time. Now, at the center of the presentations, food and nutrition security is located. And clearly, from what we have seen, this is a multidimensional attribute. And immediately takes us to the approach that is now more standard, and that is the food systems approach. Just to remind you, the food system involves actors that are interlinked through their value-adding activities, spanning production, aggregation, processing, distribution, consumption, and disposal of food production, again originating in crop and livestock farming, forestry, and fisheries, to mention the main ones. And this system is embedded in a broader economic, social, and natural environment, interacting symbiotically, as very well illustrated by what Kaleab presented a minute ago. And the fact that this system is multidimensional, and the challenge of food and nutrition security is multidimensional, means that policy making and policy instruments should be multidimensional as well. And right from the start, this creates the demand for a coherent, multidimensional evidence generation to inform both the design and implementation and tracking of policies. Now, in order to generate these coherent, multidimensional evidence, we require systematic, interdisciplinary, or multidisciplinary research. And what we have observed here is an illustration of that. This requirement is indispensable, but not easy to achieve. I like to use a description applied to econometrics at some point and some other human activity by Ed Lindmer, which is perhaps interdisciplinary research is better anticipated than enjoyed. It requires deliberate effort to make it work, and this involves significant investment in mutual understanding and building techniques and structures that would benefit from these multiple sources of insights and knowledge. In parallel, it requires innovative data collection and analysis techniques, and this has been illustrated this morning also. Satellite data with ground truthing, machine learning, and the like. In short, in my view, the studies presented today and the IPORA project itself are great illustrations of what can be done and how can it be done in terms of linking evidence through multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary research with policy making. So we have seen how this interdisciplinary research agenda has been designed and conducted, and clearly spanning the food system approach. We also have observed that the deliberate link of research and policy, starting from the design stage in the evidence generation process, and equally importantly, a deliberate effort at capacity building, both the human capital kind and that of analytical structures. So I applaud IPORA and the presentations for these achievements. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Alemayehu, for nicely concluding and really showing us aligning the coordinates based on the presentations that we have seen in session 1 and session 2 of today's conference. So with this, I think it's lunchtime, and if it hadn't been for Mintesinot's presentation, we would have lunch now. So anyway, let's take a few questions and some discussion points from the 3 presentations that we had after the break, after the tea break. So Mariana's presentation is there, and Mintesinot's presentation on the application of the tools, and Professor Kaleab's presentation taking case study from the further perspective from Afar area. So let's have quick questions, and let's have some rounds of discussion. Yeah.
Ok, j'ai 2 questions, une adressée à Mariana, que je salue, et puis une autre à Kaleab. Donc la question à Mariana est la suivante. Quelle est la méthodologie pour des agriculteurs qui pratiquent du vivrier sur un espace où on a plusieurs spéculations? Comment, dans ce cas-là, la méthodologie d'image satellitaire peut aider à pouvoir apprécier la valeur nutritive de ces différentes spéculations vivrières sur un même espace? Ça, c'est ma première question. La seconde, qui est adressée à Kaleab, il a montré à la fin de sa présentation, il a fait une corrélation entre les données de l'Atlas et puis ce qu'il a pu avoir au niveau en fait du bien-être des populations et autres à l'issue de l'adoption de la culture du fourrage. Donc, est-ce qu'il ne serait pas intéressant, pour que l'étude soit robuste, de faire une étude d'impact en impliquant des populations qui n'ont pas adopté ce fourrage, c'est-à-dire une population de non-adoptants? Est-ce qu'il ne fallait pas ajouter cela pour rendre l'étude un peu plus robuste, parce qu'à la fin c'est une corrélation? Voilà mes deux préoccupations, je vous remercie.
Merci au présentateur, c'était très intéressant. Donc ma question c'est pour Mariana, enfin la première intervenante je crois. Alors les images satellitaires, je pense que c'est vraiment très intéressant parce qu'on arrive à avoir des données multiples en un temps record avec une échelle spatiale très très variable. Mais le problème qu'on se pose toujours, quelle est la précision des images satellitaires par rapport aux mesures in situ? Et dans la même veine, est-ce que vous avez déjà réfléchi ou eu besoin d'améliorer la calibration avec des données de terrain? Et la dernière question, est-ce qu'à partir de vos données satellitaires, vous pouvez déjà évaluer la fertilité d'une culture ou d'un sol, et dans ce cas-là, conseiller au niveau de l'utilisation des engrais, surtout les engrais chimiques, pour qu'il n'y ait pas un excès d'apport d'azote et d'où créer une pollution au niveau de l'atmosphère ou des sols. Merci.
I think one of our questions is to Mariana, and the question can be addressed by Dr. Bini. He's with us, so maybe the Professor Kaleab can help in translating the question. And
I did.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for the questions. Mariana. So the first question is related to how could we differentiate the multiple species of like crops or plants. From the satellites, that is also possible from the satellites, because each species of trees or crops, they give a different signature from the satellites across the wavelengths, so that we can get images of different images in a different wavelengths or in a different electromagnetic radiation. So we took those information, and then for the data collection as well from the ground, we have to have a ground truth information for those species of trees or species of plants or crops, and then we train the machine based on that information and the upscaling using the satellite image. So that is a methodology for that. The question to the precision of satellite image, of course, yes, from the space it is very difficult to see what we can see with our naked eye, but satellites have also ability to see beyond our ability to sense. That means beyond our naked eye, so beyond visible. So that information is very important, so that makes it relatively precise. But in terms of spatial, yes, let's say if you get satellite image from Sentinel, European Space Agency, that gives us a pixel size of 10 meter, which is a 100 meter square area, is represented by a pixel. That is not as such precise, but these days we also use drones, UAVs. So those UAVs gives us very high resolution image in centimeter, like in 10 centimeter spatial resolution, and that is much better to see the information from those sensors. so that we calibrate the data or the image based on those information, and then upscale using the satellite image from space. Maybe related to fertility and agricultural inputs, let me give this to Professor Michael Marshall. So he's also our partner and attending this meeting. So maybe he can give more explanation on this. Marshall, please.
Thank you, Binyam. Sorry, I wasn't able to get the translation, but this questioner asked how we can use remote sensing for fertilizer. Is that right?
Yeah, to advise on input utilization, including fertilizer, to make sure that there's no overuse or underuse. Would there be a role for remote sensing techniques to inform the use of fertilizer?
Sure, thank you. There has been quite a bit of work, mostly on nitrogen, less so on what we call NPK, so nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And often remote sensing is used in a predictive way. So if we have some information about the soil, or even during the growing season, some months before harvest, then farmers can add fertilizer, even liquid fertilizer in the later stages as a kind of intervention. And we've used multiple types of data, as Binyam mentioned, drones, but also satellite data. And we focus on a particular region called the Red Edge. Sentinel-2 is very good at this, and hyperspectral data, which is making a comeback, so to speak. So there's a lot of work done in that way. Now, Mariana's work is quite special because she's not only looking at nitrogen and NPK, but also micronutrients, which are essential for human nutrition. So you may have heard of this term, hidden hunger. So a lot of people may receive enough calories, but not the right nutrients, and this leads to a lot of negative health outcomes, which Kaleab could talk to you about quite a bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. If I can quickly respond to the question by Thierry on why just rely on the correlation. So in fact, we presented it was an illustrative way to show how the atlas can be used, the kind of end use of the atlas, one use case. But as part of the project, we have plans there is plan for national survey that would constitute a panel that would allow us to see over time whether or not the adoption had an impact, of course allowing us to compare adopters versus non-adopters, but after controlling for other covariates and the like, more of a quasi-experimental approach, a natural experiment. So that's in plan, so you're moving forward already, that's good. Thank you.
Let me just add one.
Yeah, sure.
One comment, because I like what Alemayehu Seyoum said earlier and what many others said, but this interdisciplinary project is not out of goodwill. It's not because we think interdisciplinarity is more shiny or etc. It's because each of these disciplines actually needs the other. Let me just give a very quick illustration. Nutrition, economics, we need information. We need information, markets need information to function. We need information on products' quality attributes, how they were produced, whether they have aflatoxin, whether they're biofortified, etc. We need information then to monitor and understand how that translates in terms of nutritional outcome, etc. So we need information, and we called upon Mariana, Michael, Binyam here, and their student, Mintesinot, etc., who invested in all of this, so they could give us this information. And then, but they also need information from the ground, from the qualitative study, etc., but also from ground truthing. We need samples, actual precise measurement from the ground. And what's interesting is that as part of this, we thought, hey, can we crowdsource the ground truth? In particular, can we, as Daniel was presenting yesterday, there are about 80,000 development agents in this country that are in their daily job, visiting fields, visiting farmers, etc. Would it be possible to leverage all these people, or some of them, to collect a picture, a sample with a georeference, with georeference data that can then help calibrate the satellite? And what we've learned, we started to do that, and one of the best pictures we've had so far is a picture of a crop, exactly the one we wanted, except that the development agent took it on his TV, which tells you that asking an effort from someone is not, even if you pay him, is not something natural. And this is a whole field of economics to look at how, okay, incentives, contract, etc., etc. So as part of that, with another PhD student here, Demile, and under supervision of Jeremy, we're designing yet another study to say, okay, how can we design incentive-compatible contracts, etc. So now it's about economics helping the signal go back up to site. So my point here is that this is a pleasure, not just because we believe in it, it's because we all benefit from it, and that's it.
Hijacking the mic on the way to Dr. Paulos, maybe I would, was it on Tuesday, Professor Tozi has said there are basically two ways of doing interdisciplinary research. It's either to share the field work, an area of study. The other is to share a topic, a research topic, and then take it from different angle. And I think this project, based on what we showed, it kind of ticks both. The Afar study is one location. The topic is on forage expansion, adoption of improved fodder, but looking at it from different angles, from remote sensing, from economics, from nutrition, using multiple methods, qualitative, quantitative, spatial image, and trying to triangulate all this while respecting the boundaries of each methods and specialities. And I think it's quite a word of wisdom that we heard, and gave me the lens to see that exactly this, why is this working? Probably because we ticked both of those conditions to the extent possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, while I was looking for some reference materials while I've been informed to chair this session, there is a kind of commentary which said that interdisciplinary science is not always easy. Sometimes economists, agronomists, and nutritionists speak that as if they are from the whole different planets. So one commentary said that, but IPORA, let me read line by line, but IPORA, it proves that when these planets align, we get something extraordinary. Solutions that are scientifically sound, socially relevant, and policy ready. So that sums up the interdisciplinary nature of this project. So I appreciate that. So do we have people online? No? Any burning questions, any issues you'd like to, any discussion points you'd like to raise? I can give opportunity to our students. If you don't want to miss your lunch, you can skip this. Yeah. Okay, so shall we conclude it? Yeah. Okay, so thank you. First and foremost, I would like the audience to join me in appreciating all the presenters in session 1, session 2, the opening presentation by Professor Kaleab and Professor Tongi. So please, let's give a round of applause to these presentations. So as we come to end of this rich and thought-provoking session, allow me to extend my sincere appreciation to IPORA project. This was the stage that I have been waiting. At Center for Food Science, 4 PhD students were supported by this project. 1 has graduated last year, 2 will graduate this year, and 1 will graduate by June 2027. And also, we have been provided with seed fund to work on research like mycotoxin contamination in red pepper. So, personally, as in my capacity as the head of Center for Food Science, IPORA project is really a meaningful project which helped us to do so many research activities and supported so many of our PhD students. So, thank you all the presenters, and we have journeyed across ideas, countries, and disciplines, exploring agricultural innovation, policy evolution, and the real-world diffusion of solutions aimed at really, as the theme said, strengthening food and nutrition security. What stands out clearly is that innovation alone is not enough. It is the translation of knowledge into practice that truly makes a difference. So thank you for that, for the deep insights, and if you allow me to conclude this session of the conference with one phrase, I would say, research becomes meaningful only when it touches lives. So thank you all the presenters, thank you the audience, have a nice lunch.